The board of CBMC has been working to have programs that are not only that are faith-based, but also that are a benefit to men and women and families in the community. One of the topics that comes up with great frequency is what is euphemistically called estate planning. From my 40 years as a lawyer, a judge, and a mediator, I would prefer to call it life planning because that is, at the end of the day, really what it's all about. Each of the presenters will have 7 or 8 minutes or so to talk about issues that they think are of interest and importance from their particular perspectives. We have financial planners, we have accountants, and we have attorneys. And this is not, let me say, going to be a lecture on why you should have a living trust and a pour-over will. We're not doing that kind of thing, although that may come up, because that is really the tip of the iceberg. Each of these presenters, as we talked in preparation for this gathering, has a life experience of seeing things that should be done, things that really should be done, and some things that under no circumstances should be done. So they will talk, as they will, about those snippets. I think they will be of interest to you. If during the course of this presentation you feel as if they're talking to you or that you have talked to them because some of those things ring a bell, then this is a good morning. Let's begin with Jack Hooper.
It's titled The Top 10 Ways to Avoid Destroying Your Portfolio and Your Future. And decided to do it in true David Letterman style. So I'll get started. The number 10 is know where you want to go. When Alice in Alice in Wonderland came to a fork in the road, she asked the Cheshire Cat, which way should I go? The Cheshire Cat said, well, which road do I take? She asked. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Then it doesn't matter what road you take. So make sure, number one, make sure that you're very clear on where you want to go. Ask and answer important questions like how much capital do I need to maintain my lifestyle? What returns are required to accomplish all the things that are important to me? Number 9, short-term forecasts are worthless. While there are many high-paid economists on staff on most financial institutions, the reality is a forecast anything less than 3 years is largely going to be based on unexpected events that occur over the short term, such as a terrorist attack, economic surprises, or even which color is the dress. Is it black and blue, or was it white and gold? Look, the reality is, if Nick or myself or any other advisor could predict what was going to happen consistently over a short period of time, less than 3 years, we simply would not be managing anybody else's money. We would be managing our own and borrowing at ridiculously low interest rates and buying low and selling high. That is the common sense principle. Number 8, don't make small mistakes. When you make a small mistake on a small amount of money, it's a small amount of money. When you make a small mistake on a large amount of money, it's a large amount of money. Number 7, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. If your portfolio is taxed like the average mutual fund, you will give up over 60% of the return on your portfolio from the taxes that are paid throughout the year and the earnings lost on those taxes. CPAs just got through with tax season. This last year in the market was really a flat year, but most of you may be surprised to learn that you had a lot of capital gains taxes to pay. That's on any non-retirement funds, they should always be tax managed. Number 6, never skate to the puck. Wayne Gretzky, one of the greatest hockey players of all time, was being interviewed, and the interviewer asked him, said, "Why are you such a great hockey player? You are not the fastest skater on the ice. You're not the fanciest puck handler. What makes you? And you're not the most intimidating. What makes you so much better than everyone else?" He thinks for a moment. He said, "You know, most of the players, they skate to where the hockey puck is. I skate to where the hockey puck's going." Now, what's interesting, most investors, even professional investors, they don't even skate to where the hockey puck is. They skate to where it used to be by looking in the past to determine where they're going to go. Number 5, I love these viral videos on YouTube now. They always say, "Wait for it, wait for it." Well, one of the legendary traders in the 20s and 30s, a gentleman named Jesse Livermore, he said, "Throughout my years of investing, I found that the big money was never in the buying and the selling. The big money was made in the waiting." Jesse Livermore had a lot to live on. He must have had very little to live for, though, because he did end up taking his own life by shooting himself in 1940 at the age of 63. Never mix up, this is free. There's a lot of people who have a lot to live on, but make sure you have a lot to live for. Number 4, don't move away from the pain. George Soros, one of the large American business magnates, he said, "Successful investing is very painful." Why is that? Three easy ways to understand that. What is cheap became cheap by treating us badly. Whatever is overvalued and poised to perform badly got there by treating us very well. Successful investing requires that we regularly inflict pain on ourselves. And now the top 3 ways to avoid destroying your portfolio and your future. Number 3, avoid rear-view mirror investing. The road conditions ahead, this is more important today than ever before, are likely to be very different as we go forward. What are the chances when you leave this breakfast this morning that you're going to get to where you want to go safely if 90% of the times you're looking at the road conditions behind you? Number 2, this chart on the top is the Nikkei 225. It's the equivalent to the S&P 500. Starting in 1990 when it reached its peak at nearly 40,000. And today it's still less than 20,000. The bottom chart shows the central bank rate for Japan. Notice that it's been on a 0% and today it's negative for a very long time and has been very hazardous to Japan's economy. This could be a foreshadowing of what's to come. Japan has the highest amount of debt as a percent of its GDP. Very similar to what we're seeing in the rest of the developed economies. Proverbs 22:3, "The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty." Number 1, the biggest way of destroying your capital is to avoid it. Don't take an ultralight plane for your important trips in life. Now, an airplane or investment structure to a portfolio manager is what an airplane is to a pilot. Without the airplane, the pilot's not going to get you to where you want to go. And a strong structure is very important to get you from where you are to where you want to go.
Joel Daniel, as I said, is finishing up his 12-month practice and going to be doing tax planning and living in Cayucas, but a wonderful guy and a wonderful firm. Please welcome Joel Daniel.
My focus has been totally on taxes. And I think taxes can be a way, if you can minimize your tax not by cheating, but by legally minimizing your tax, it's going to help you go a long way towards preserving the assets that you do have. And the first thing that I put on my list was you need to do some tax planning. You need to think about what is my best position to be in tax-wise, and get advice. One of the things that happens in my practice, somebody comes in and says, guess what I did? And you hear those words and it's, ooh, no, what am I going to hear now? And so I like the people that come in and say, hey, I have this property, I'm thinking about selling it. What's the best way to handle this from a tax standpoint? Or I have this situation, what's the best way? Work with your tax planning people, your financial advisors and your tax planning people, your attorneys, and think about things ahead of time. Don't bring into them, this is what I did, either did I do it right or help me get out of it, because sometimes once you've done something, it's not too easy to get out of it. Another thing is I thought about is my clients are not, I have a few wealthy clients, but most of them are, just average people. Maybe they make anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 if they're still working. If they're retired, that comes down a lot less. And one of their biggest assets is their residence. And some people actually own 2 residences. I have a situation with a minister that had recently retired. When he first started in the ministry, he bought a house on the coast for very, very little money, and now it's grown to a considerable amount, probably $700,000-800,000. And he lived in Fresno. I thought, and he's saying, well, if I sell the house, what's going to happen? I said, well, you have a $500,000 exclusion, but you may be having $200,000-300,000 of taxable income. And guess what? You're going to pay capital gains on that. And he's, and then, when you start throwing around figures of, and especially ministers that really don't have a history of making a whole lot of money, and you start throwing around figures of, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 tax, that kind of gets their attention. And in this particular case, I said, well, there is something in the law that says if you live in a house for 2 out of the last 5 years, you sell, you can exclude up to $500,000 of that gain. And they thought, okay. And they were renting the house. They lived in Fresno. They decided to sell the Fresno house, move back into the home, live there for 2 years, and they've probably only been in there a year now. But if they decide at this point to sell that house, they will save a tremendous amount of tax. And for somebody that's going to be the funds that they live on for the rest of their life, that's pretty important. Another thing that can happen to consider would be things like if you, I had another client that had some farm property, and again, we're looking at a real large gain when they sell it, because they've had that property since the 50s. And so we talk, but they were open to selling the property and acquiring something else. And they through the vehicle called a 1031 exchange, were able to take the gain from the sale of that property, move it into, and they bought 2 nice houses in North Fresno that they'll have as rentals, and those properties will then, as they gain in value, when they sell them, at least they will be have capital gains. Or with our estate planning people, if they keep those properties until they die, they get a step up in basis, and then they will not be looking at probably any gain at all, them, but whoever gets the property from them, their beneficiaries, their kids. So those are a couple things in planning. Another thing is looking at the type of income you have. Ordinary income is taxed a whole lot more than capital gain incomes or qualified dividends. I have a client, did tax return this year, retired physician, been retired for a year or 2, very heavy in investments. He had over $100,000 of income, 0 income tax, because it was all put in capital gains and qualified dividends. So in talking to your financial advisors, yeah, that might be a way to look at it. There's also things, I see quite a few people that have investments in non-taxable securities, muni bonds, those kind of things. I also see people that have in muni bonds that they have a low tax bracket, maybe a 15% tax bracket. It really doesn't make sense. So you need to look at your investments in relationship to the tax bracket that you're in. Another thing that people really mess up quite a bit. Somebody comes in and guess what I did? And this happened. One of these, guess what I did? I cashed in retirement funds. And I cashed in retirement funds because we wanted to buy this dream house that we have. Well, what they don't realize is when we prepare their tax return and they owe Uncle Sam and Jerry Brown a whole lot of money, they don't realize what they've done, because when you cash in a retirement plan, you get, and you're under age 59 and a half, you not only pay the income tax on it, but you also pay a 10% penalty for the federal government and a 2.5% penalty for the state. And oftentimes that equals over 50% of what you took as a distribution. Another thing is, and this is something that you probably should talk to your financial advisors about, would be converting to a Roth IRA from a traditional IRA or a qualified pension plan.